What's up, world? This is Coach Jay here, back to have another teaching, another conversation because of something that hit my mind. What I am realizing in today's time amongst young people, particularly ages of maybe like 13 to 18, is that they seem to struggle with communication. They seem to struggle with the ability to hold a conversation with adults. Now, they don't struggle doing this when it comes to interacting with their peers, but when it comes to interacting with adults, I believe that there is a real struggle that is taking place. And so I want to just discuss some things that I believe as parents that we can model, as coaches we can model, as leaders we can model to help young people grow and develop their ability to communicate when we're engaging with them. So I hope that you take something from this video. If you have children, I hope that you share this video with your children so that they can understand some areas in their life that they can develop around so that they'll be able to communicate effectively, articulate themselves effectively when it comes to interacting with adults. Because again, it's not that they struggle interacting with their peers, but it's the struggle that I see when it comes to communicating with adults. So let's go ahead and dive in. Point number one, when it comes to the way that we interact with young people as adults, one thing we can do is practice and model and demonstrate active listening. Sometimes when it comes to interacting with young adults, we may be busy, we may be occupied, we may be doing more than one thing, and so we're listening, but we're multitasking at the same time. So I want to encourage our parents, our leaders, that when you're engaging young people, practice active listening. And so that means that you're going to have to be very intentional about, what you have going on in that moment, how you posture yourself in that moment, so you can be very present, very attuned and attentive while engaging in that conversation with young people. Because again, you're modeling and you're setting an example of something you want them to be able to demonstrate. So it's very important to practice and model active listening when you're engaging with young people. The second thing is communicate in a way that it gives clarity and is very concise. When we're interacting with young people, we don't want to talk over their head. We don't want to talk around them, but we want to communicate in a way that's very clear and very concise. We want to communicate in a way to where when young people leave the conversation with us, they're very clear. They have the understanding that it's necessary to go and execute. A lot of times where I see young people struggling when it comes to communicating with adults is that they don't always get their thoughts out. They're not always clear. They communicate in code because that's how they communicate when it comes to their peers. But we want them to develop a strong ability to communicate and communicate with a diverse population. We don't want them to just be able to use the jargon, use the slang when it comes to their peers, but we want them to be able to hold a conversation and communicate from a academic perspective, a business perspective. We want them to articulate themselves in a way to where it shows their self-confidence. And so again, when we practice active listening, when we communicate in a very clear and concise way, it helps them develop a strong communication skill and ability. And the third thing is we want to display empathy. We want to connect with young people. We want to get on their level so that they can feel the connection, so that they can feel and sense that we're locked in, that we're plugged in to their world when we're engaging in conversation with them. We want to lean in and we want to feel with them. We want them to feel our connection. We want them to feel our love. We want them to feel our attention. We want them to feel like they matter. And that's another way that we can help young people develop their communication skills, is to display empathy. Also, open-mindedness. Sometimes as leaders, authority figures, and parents, we may not have an open mind. We may feel like as the authority that we have all the answers and we know all things. And when we show up in this way, we're doing more harm than good, because we cause young people, or that can cause young people, to draw back and shut down. So when young people are communicating with us, we want to be open-minded about what it is that they're talking about what it is that they may be experiencing, and what it is that they may have going on. Be a little bit slower to problem solve, and just really sit in active listening and be open-minded around what young people bring to you. Don't be quick to judge, but just, again, be open-minded, embrace and accept what young people may bring to you. Because, again, we don't want young people to shut down and not communicate with us. We want to enhance and grow and develop their communication skill. And one way to do this is practice being open-minded. There are some things that may be going on with young people that may shock you, that may surprise you, that may cause you to be angry. But again, we don't want to display those emotions. We want to always communicate with young people with a very open mind. Even when it comes to the responses that we may get from them. You may not like the responses. You may not agree with the responses. But again, communicate with the open mind. Also, we have to be mindful of our nonverbal communication. That kind of ties back into the things I was talking about with the open-mindedness. Like, you got to be mindful if they give a response that you don't just have that knee-jerk reaction and make them feel like what they said was stupid, or make them feel like what they said was not right or was not correct. So we want to be mindful of our nonverbals, whether it is our eye contact, our facial expressions, how we're postured. We got to keep all of that in mind, because, again, we're modeling here, right? It may be your personal behavior and the way you typically respond, but we don't want them to pick up things that can negatively affect their ability to communicate effectively. And so we want to be mindful of our nonverbals as well, because that can cause a young person to shut down. If they open up with 2 or 3 sentences and they see you looking at them strange, like, why are you wasting my time talking about this? They may draw back, and then now you have it where, somebody you may be coaching, mentoring, teaching, or even your own children, they won't come back and open up to you again, because your nonverbal made them feel incompetent. It made them feel less than. And so we want to be mindful of the nonverbals as well. And also respect. Even though, again, you may be the authority figure, you may be the one that is the leader, you may be the one that holds power, but I believe that we should still respect young people. Again, we're modeling. And one of the greatest ways to get respect is to show respect. Again, you may be the adult, but it doesn't mean that you do not have to respect young people, respect their point of views, respect their thoughts, respect how they approach things. Because, again, if you want to change that behavior, if you want them to grow and develop, you got to have a relationship. You got to have some buy-in. And one of the ways to develop a relationship and get buy-in is by demonstrating and showing respect. So in your communication with young people, show respect, and I guarantee you will get respect back. It may not be in all cases, but in most cases, you will get that respect back. And then also be mindful of feedback. We have to give feedback in order for people to grow. You got feedback as an adult. I get feedback as an adult, because that's the way we grow. That's the way we make adaptations. That's the way we make pivots. That's the way we get informed, is by feedback. And so our ability to give feedback to young people is important. However, we also have to be mindful of the feedback. We don't always want to focus on the negative, but we want to give feedback in a way that it calls growth to take place, awareness to take place, insight to take place. And so, again, feedback is very crucial in terms of developing a young person's communication style or communication skill altogether. And also communicating with confidence. Some of the most successful adults will tell you that because of their confidence, their self-confidence, it enabled them to take chances, to take risks over and over and over again. And when we communicate with young people with confidence, we can model that and show them what it's like to communicate and show up with confidence. But again, like I said earlier, when it comes to nonverbals, if we demean, belittle, attack young people, it can kill their confidence. And we don't want to do that. We want to build young people up so that they can communicate and articulate themselves very clear and very concise. And so instilling that confidence in them by you showing up with confidence is a great way to get them up to speed if they lack confidence when it comes to speaking, when it comes to believing in themselves, when it comes to what they think. A lot of young people shy away from what they think. They don't want to talk about what they think because they may feel like it's not relevant. Nobody's going to listen to me. But we want them to be confident when it comes to what they think, what they feel, what is going on around them. In order for us to do that, we gotta allow them to speak. We gotta allow them to have those conversations so that they can build that confidence around what's going on in their mind, what's going on in their thoughts. Because these are young leaders, young world leaders that we're interacting with. They may be young right now, but at some point, they're going to grow and develop and become world leaders and become leaders, business owners. And so we want to cultivate this gift early on when it comes to communication, because communication is so vital in everything we do day to day. The lack of ability to communicate can cause you to miss out on $1 million worth of funding if you can't communicate and articulate yourself. So communication is key to building wealth, to being successful, whether it is when it comes to finances, when it comes to relationships. Communication is very key and very vital. And so this is one skill that all young people, and I believe families, need to master, is the art of communication. And then also adaptability. Remember, I said in the beginning that I feel like young people are doing exceptionally well when it comes to communicating with each other. I believe that they have that down pat for the most part. However, where I feel like they are struggling at is around that adaptability, right? Can you adapt to any situation, any environment, and still communicate in a way that is concise and clear, right? That's where the struggle is. So we have to, again, work with young people in a way to where they're able to adapt to whatever environment they're in and still communicate. And we can do that by modeling, by being that example, by also communicating with them in different settings, showing them the adaptability. So again, this is crucial here because, like I said earlier, I believe young people have mastered how to communicate with each other, but they are struggling in some of these other areas. How are they going to be able to go communicate with a supervisor on the job to get their first, job as a teenager? They're going to have the ability to communicate. They're going to have the ability to communicate very clear and concise. They're going to have to know how to respond correctly to certain questions. They're going to have to know how to articulate, give example, give demonstration. And so, again, communication, adaptability here is very important. Also, the ability to practice conflict resolution, because the reality is conflict resolution, a large part of being able to resolve conflict is communication. And we know that the social environments that young people are experiencing, being raised in, around day to day, there's a lot of conflict. Whether it's in real time, in person, or even on social media, there are lots of conflict. And so we want young people to have the skill and the ability by way of communication to resolve conflict. And the way that we do that is that when there is a conflict that you may have with a young person, keep that in mind, that you want to practice conflict resolution. And it may be easier said than done, because as an adult, you may be one to practice, you do what I say, when I say, how I say, versus actually engaging in conversation to resolve the conflict in a very mutual way, right? Because again, we're trying to teach and develop skills in young people. And you don't teach and develop a skill by saying, do what I say. That's not how you develop and teach a skill. So again, when it comes to communication, demonstrating, practicing conflict resolution by way of conversation is going to be very healthy for young people to have that skill. And then the last point is cultural sensitivity. Being able to understand different cultures, have some knowledge around how other cultures think, how other cultures communicate is going to be key as well when it comes to adaptability, right? Because, just because you communicate this one way with your peers over here, if you're dealing with another peer group that's from another culture, they may communicate differently. And understanding that can cause you to avoid conflict. And so, again, we want to be demonstrating and practicing all of these things with young people that will enhance their ability to communicate effectively in all settings. I believe that there's so many challenges that young people are facing that can be resolved if they had a robust ability to communicate. And so again, these 11 points that I mentioned, 11 keys that I mentioned today that we can practice as teachers, adults, mentors in the lives of young people will help them develop their communication skills. Again, practice active listening, communicate with clarity and be concise, practice empathy, be open-minded, be mindful of your nonverbal, communicate with respect, give feedback, be confident, practice adaptability, practice conflict resolution, and then keep in mind cultural sensitivity when it comes to how you show up and communicate with young people. So these are 11 keys that you can practice, that you can work with on a day-to-day basis when you're interacting with young people that will help them develop their communication skills. And again, I said in the beginning, I believe that young people have mastered the ability to communicate with each other. But where the struggle is that I see is that they are struggling to communicate with adults in different environments. And so these 11 things, if you practice them, being intentional when you're interacting with your children, when you're interacting with those that you work with, I believe that we can see things begin to shift and change in the lives of our young people when it comes to their ability to communicate effectively. Communication skill is a skill that they will be able to use throughout the duration of their life. So if they can master communication skills early, I believe that they will find themselves being ahead of the curve and they will experience success a little bit sooner than later. So that's what Coach got for you today. Hope you're taking something away from this video, and make sure you hit like, make sure you hit subscribe, and I'll see you on the next go round. Peace.